Let's
First,
just start.
yeah.
Okay, welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're delighted to have you here at Urban Art Space. I know it's a busy weekend for many. It's been a busy month, busy semester, I would say. So much happening, so it's really terrific to have you here. We're in the Urban Art Space currently. Urban Art Space was started in 2008.
Okay, Barbad.
Here for roughly 15 years now, hosting exhibitions, programming, and performances. We are closely associated with the Ohio State University, working with faculty and students. Research is always at the forefront of everything we're going to be doing. And so we are delighted, again, to have this exhibition here at this time. I'm going to cut my remarks short because we're running super late. Quickly, want to take a moment to introduce the exhibitions. So in the lower gallery, we have a project called Embroidered Past and Present. It's by a Congolese artist by the name of Jinoos Taghizadeh, curated by a faculty member at OSU from the American Studies Department, Sarah Converted. That exhibition opened last week, and then of course in this space, and also venturing into the lower gallery, we have a project curated by our very own Illya Mousavijad. Did I say that right?
Can you get closer to this?
I can, yes, absolutely. I will. So I'm going to sit over here now and talk in the microphone. It's an incredibly ambitious project, as you see, and we are just so delighted to have this here. You know, in terms of what we see, talking about artists and the role of artists, also doubling perhaps as activists, as teachers, as historians. And you will see that coming back in both of these exhibitions. Illya, by the way, is the newest faculty member in the Department of Arts. So I'm very excited to have him. Tonight, of course, I have the privilege of introducing Illya. He's also an artist in the show, so make sure you check out his work as well. Illya is an emerging multidisciplinary conceptual artist born and raised in Isfahan, Iran. He received his BFA at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, and his MFA is from the Weizmann School of Design at the University of Pennsylvania. His art practice investigates the limits and extents of exile, border and identity politics, Middle Eastern history, exile literature, US and Iran relations. He works across media, including installation, painting, video, and computer animation. He has collaborated with international artists of various disciplines and exhibited in Iran and the US. We started talking with Illya about this project almost a year ago. And of course, you know, the proposal is incredibly ambitious. And fittingly, of course, today, now that we are surrounded by the work of this incredible group of Iranian artists, we also learned that the 2023 Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to the jailed Iranian activist Narges Mohammadi. Yeah. Will you help me with the pronunciation of the name?
Narges Mohammadi.
Narges Mohammadi. Yes. For her fight against the oppression of women in Iran and her fight to promote human rights and freedom for all. So once again, it's really wonderful to see you all. Please help me welcome Illya and our panelists, and we'll get started.
Okay, it seems like Parastou does not have. Parastou, can you hear us? We are trying to connect 3 different continents together here. And
Yes, so we are trying to have artists from all over the world, Europe and here and North America. So I really appreciate your patience as we are trying to organize this. Okay.
but it might be also her connection issue.
I do not. Let me just check.
But I can start with first of all, thanking everyone for being here, and I have a few remarks to begin the night before we start the panel. It is an enormous pleasure to be here with you. I would like to sincerely thank all those who have supported this exhibition project, including the Office of Academic Affairs for the funds, Moraine, Lily, Kuhn, Diane, the gallery director, assistants, coordinators, and all of the interns of the gallery, the Department of Art, our department's coordinators for their tireless and generous work with bureaucracies and administration. And last but not least, the amazing artists living across 3 continents for participating with their incredibly sophisticated artwork. Can you hear me, by the way? I should speak louder. Okay. As we gather here to launch this exhibition, yes, this is as far as it goes. This exhibition, which sheds light on the state-sponsored violence of the Islamic Republic against civilian protesters and citizens, it is also important to highlight the role played by the US political administrations in inciting, promoting, enabling, and normalizing violence across the Middle East and beyond. As much as we condemn the criminal acts of the Islamic regime against Iranians through our artistic works, we also hold the politicians of this country accountable for meddling with Iranian politics, which has historically ruined the chance of establishing a democratic government in Iran by orchestrating the 1953 coup against the democratically elected Prime Minister Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh. Last week, as grieving families of the Women Life Freedom Movement were mourning the loss of their children, Biden administration paid over $6 billion to this criminal regime only to further secure its longevity. And today, as we have gathered here to honor the memory of over 500 victims, another 16-year-old lifeless body, that of Armita Geravand, right? Geravand, is laid in the intensive care unit of Fajr Hospital in Tehran. Yesterday, her mother was arrested and her friends were forced to give false confessions and to deny what happened to her in the metro station. Similar to Mahsaj or Gina Amini, Armita was pushed and beaten by the hijab enforcement forces and fell into a coma. Curating this show, Iran, Deciphering Violence and Resistance, here in a city named after Christopher Columbus, who is notorious for inciting violence against indigenous Americans. I struggled with the title of the show. I have struggled and continue to struggle with the ways in which our artistic and intellectual entanglements concerning the state violence in Iran may impact the dangerous opportunism of white supremacists and ultra-nationalists and their dangerous political agendas regarding the Middle East and Iran. It is upon us, the artists and intellectuals of the Middle East and Iran, to constantly engage in critical thinking and to acknowledge the role of certain extremists, racist politicians of this country in fueling extremism, extremist and fundamentalist trends across the Middle East. Having said that, tonight, our focus is on deciphering violence and resistance in Iran. The artworks that have been exhibited here reflect on the predicaments that the Iranian people continue to wrestle with under the rule of the religious dictatorship. They reflect on a collective pain that continuously falls in the cracks of media and international attention. I should also add that this exhibition, its artists, and the whole collection would not unfold, would only unfold their perspectives, concepts, struggles, and concerns. This exhibit is by no means a summary or conclusion of the resolutely complex and nuanced landscape of Iran and its surrounding region. Tonight, for this panel, which will last for 1 hour and continued by a few minutes of Q&A, we have 5 Iranian artists whose work have been included in the exhibition, and they are joining us from 3 different continents. Parastou Forouhar from Frankfurt, Germany. Barbad Golshiri, living in France. Jinoos Taghizadeh from Toronto, Canada. Omid Shekari is here in person with us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And last but not least, Dr. Fatemeh Shams. And Dr. Shams goes by Shahrzad as well, who lives in Philadelphia. I have 2 rounds of questions for our panelists. If you can limit your responses to 3 to 4 minutes for each round, that would be great. Do we have Parastou?
So Parastou cannot hear us. Parastou, can you hear us at the moment? We can see her, and no, she cannot hear us.
Maybe I can read the question to that microphone. But then
sure, but she cannot hear us at all. And I wonder why she can't hear us, because all other panelists can. With the headphones, Parastou Jan, can you hear us now with the headphones? If not, then I think the best solution would be to restart the computer and try to join us again.
Okay.
So I just wanted to,
yes,
if you allow me to just say a couple of words to just express my gratitude and appreciation for all that Illya has been doing here. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure and honor to be in your company today. And it's a pleasure and honor to be in the company of my wonderful artist friends, Barbad Golshiri, Parastou Forouhar, Jinoos Taghizadeh, Maryam Ashrafi, Roya Amir, Omid Shekari, Mehran Najafi, Omid Shekari, I apologize, Omid Shekari, Mehran Najafi. Those artists who are not with us today, and those who are here, thank you so much for being with us. I know it's late in Europe, and I really hope Parastou can hear us at some point. I met Illya when he joined University of Pennsylvania, where I teach Persian literature and modern Iranian history years back. I don't exactly recall what year it was.
Maybe 2018.
2018. Illya was an MFA student, and the work, the talent, and the dedication that this young man has to his homeland, to his culture, and to arts never ceased to impress me. So thank you, Illya. I know how hard it has been for you and how hard you have worked for putting this incredibly rich and inspiring show together. And I feel extremely humbled and lucky and fortunate to be part of it. Thank you for everything. So Parastou, I don't know if we have you. If not, I would suggest that we will probably
Start.
it's better to move on to the next artists,
Yes. Yes.
until we figure out.
I think
we
so,
wanted to
because-
start the show with Parastou.
And I think that at the worst case scenario, we could write the question to her and
But we
she
cannot
can,
hear.
No, I think she can hear us now.
Okay.
she can,
Oh, wonderful.
beautiful.
Well, welcome, Parastou Can. Yes.
But you're still mute, okay? You're still on mute.
Okay, well, why don't you address the question
Okay,
to her and then, yeah.
Okay, so my first question is for you, Parastou Can. Let me start and say that you're one of the greatest forerunners of feminist and pro-justice activism in Iran and Iranian contemporary art. Could you share with us your views on the place of art in pro-justice activism? Can art express pain? And if so, to what extent?
Her mic is not.
I think you're muted. No.
Her mic is working.
Oh.
Other than that.
Okay.
We have,
Yes. We may need to come back to her.
Okay.
maybe we can
let's
move.
to maybe
Mm.
Jinoos and then we will.
We have, no, the next question is actually for you, if that's okay.
Let's move on.
Besides, so I would, besides being a poet, you're also an expert in modern Iran. I wanted to actually ask you about this experience, and actually it's a great honor that we work for me that I could collaborate with you on this beautiful poem you have written. Could you speak about your poem that is called "This Is Not a Poem" and the experience of manifesting it in our collaboration in this space?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's a great question, but I really sincerely hope if you need to work on the
Okay.
backstage
I
to bring-
don't know if I
bring-
can be helpful.
to bring
Actually-
Parastou's voice to the room
I-
because she really is the lady in.
Do you hear me now? I'm very sorry.
This really just shows the sheer, dedication and work and passion that has gone into this. Okay, thank you, Parastou Can, for being with us, and we are so.
Very much for the invitation.
you're
Thank you very much. But I'm very sorry. I don't know what was going wrong.
Sorry, everything
No
is
worries, no worries.
fine. Go ahead.
Would you need me to repeat the question, Parastou, or you heard it?
First of all, I don't know. I didn't hear you all what was going on, and I just wanted to say that I was the whole day busy with the very wonderful news that we got with Narges Mohammadi winning the Nobel Peace Prize, and that still I'm just feeling this happiness, and I just wanted to express that, and think it is a good opportunity that we are all together thinking of her and all other prisoners in Iran and their struggle and women life freedom movement. And I just wanted to begin with that, and then that would be great if you allow me to switch to Farsi and give the answers in Farsi, and because Shahzad was kind enough to say that she would translate, that would be much easier for me, because for small talks, my English is good enough, but not beyond that.
English is perfect. Congratulations, Parastou Can, to you and to all wonderful
To all of us,
women of
all of
Iran, to all of us who have been struggling and fighting against
Yeah.
this brutality. Yes, please go ahead. And I'm here at your service.
Thank you very much. So, Illya, would you repeat your question, please?
Vale, yes. The question in English is, what
Mhm.
could you share with us your views on the place of art in pro-justice activism? Can art express pain, and if so, to what extent?
Did you
هنر
شنیدی پرستو جان سوالو؟
بله.
و اگر بخواید میتونم ترجمهش رو
نه
هم
دیگه،
به فارسی.
فهم.
It's okay.
فکر میکنم فهمیدم.
بسیار.
در واقع میدونی شاید از دلم من بخواد که از درد شروع نکنم، برای اینکه درد در واقع پیامد سرکوبه. لااقل در کنتکست کار من درد یا این در واقع گیر افتادگی فیگورهای انسانی در یک ساختاری که حالا کارها دارن در واقع پیامد یک شرایطه که به ناآزادی اونها و سرکوب اونها ارتباط داره.
So Parastu's answer is that I'd rather not start with pain, because pain is for me a consequence of the injustice and the oppression that we have been subjected to. It's in the context of my work, pain shows itself or manifests itself in the strangled figures who are cut up in the process of injustice, and you can see the pain being manifested in the human figures in my work. Correct? If you can keep the sentences maybe a bit shorter. I have a very weak, poor memory. Sorry.
That was an amazing translation. Thank you so much.
شاید در واقع هنر یک فضایی باز میکنه برای دریافت، برای درک و در واقع یه نوعی از شاید یه نوع حس همدلی، فضایی برای این همدلی ایجاد میکنه و شاید برای من این فضاست در واقع کار هنری.
So the art for her opens a space for reception, a space for perception, and it's within that space that that art becomes a means or sort of a process through which she can communicate that pain and create a space in which the sensory experience of the viewer will allow them to empathize with the artist.
و در واقع شاید اگر اینطوری بهش نگاه بکنیم میتونه یک فضایی باشه برای اینکه حساس بکنه بیننده رو به ضرورت یک موضع گرفتن، یک موقعیتی در واقع کاری کردن، یه جور حساس کردن مخاطبه و نه بیش از اون.
And if we approach art in this way, then we can hope that the viewer will not only empathize with the artist, not only understand and receives and perceives the pain and senses the pain and feels the pain, but also to take action and to do something about it.
اگر که توضیح کافی نیست.
That's perfect.
That's
I think that's
perfect.
a perfect answer.
Beautiful. خیلی خیلی ممنون پرستو جان. My next question was for you, Shahrzad, and I briefly repeated. It's about your poem, which is called "This Is Not a Poem," and it does remind me of that amazing film that is called "This Is Not a Film" by Panahi. The realizing the limits of language in expressing violence and trauma to me is essentially part of this work. I would love for you to speak about this poem and also the realization of it formally in our collaboration here.
Well, let me start by thanking you for this really amazing and moving installation of my poem, because
Thank you.
this is something that you have done. I know we spoke about it in length as you were, working on the installation. I was telling you what I have in mind based on, what I experienced when I was writing this poem, what I felt when I was writing this poem, and very much building up on what Parastou was saying about the sort of the art. And, poetry for me is a form of art, a creative writing is a form of art. To create that space in which the reader, the viewer can be part of experiencing and feeling effectively, to be part of that affective experience of a collective pain and trauma. So when I was, like many of us, witnessing this really just naked violence people, Iranian people, particularly young women and girls, being subjected to this unprecedented acts of violence, state-sponsored violence, I found myself often dumbfounded as a poet. And there was a question constantly lingering in the back of my head that, okay, what am I doing here as a poet? How am I going to bring this on the page? And to be perfectly honest with you, for the most part, I felt extremely desperate and quite incapable of really phrasing and articulating what was happening in reality in front of me. And I guess at the end I came to this, I guess, conclusion that the only way to go about this, if I want to document this feeling of desperation and lack of ability to grasp this pain on a linguistic level, then I just have to articulate that lack of ability and that desperation. And for me, that very much came into play with the negation, with the sort of the power of negation when it comes to the language. So the title of the poem, which is In She'r Nist, or This Is Not a Poem, as you said, I think is very telling in terms of what the poem does with not only language itself, but also with the imagination of the reader, and not only the imagination of the reader, but also the expectation of the reader. So it very much became an account of what I was witnessing. And I think at the end, art, particularly when it deals with collective traumas, becomes a tool through which the viewers and the readers could experience that and could understand, could get a grasp of what was happening. In reference, so this was something that I was really looking forward to think about it more in depth when I see the work in the installation. And now that I saw it, I think what we tried to do here, and the installation, by the way, is in the back room. You see the letters in Persian that are hung up in the wall, suspended. And that is, this is a long poem. I'm not going to read the whole poem, but there is a part in the poem where I get into the language itself as a tortured human figure. So the language itself basically become the site of torture and trauma. And I will just read that part for you, that you can then see that, and you can hear the poem in the background in English being recited as you see the work and experience it for yourself. And that part says, این شعر نیست، داستان زندگی قاتلی است که با خونبهای شاعران سرکش هر شب نان تازه به خانه می آورد. به صبح نرسیده نعش کلمات روی دست این صفحه های سفید خواهد ماند و یکی یکی در گور دست جمعی تنگی با حشرات فربه شده به خواب ابدی فرو خواهند رفت. این شعر نیست، هفته هاست اینجا کلمه ها را از پاها آویزان کرده اند. دستهای استعاره و نور را به نرده‌های آهنی قفل کرده اند و آب را از حنجره زبان خشک سرود دریغ and I leave it on that because it's the poem starts before that and after it goes on for a long time, and then the part I just read it in translation.
And the translation of the poem is in an audio format that you can also hear under the poem. Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge the translation is done by Armen Davoudian, who is an Iranian Armenian poet himself. And this part of the poem that I read in translation goes as such. This is not a poem. This is the life story of an executioner who brings home fresh bread every night with the blood money of rebellious poets. Before morning comes, the corpse of these words will be on the hands of these white pages. And one by one, they will fall into eternal sleep in a crowded mass grave with fattened insects. This is not a poem. For weeks, words have been hung up here by their feet. The hands of metaphor and light have been chained to iron fences, and water denied to the throat of the dry tongue of this song. Alas, alas. And this is my very first collaboration in an art exhibition, and I think I'm just very inspired by every artist who has a work here, and I just wish that they were all here. And thank you for installing this in such a beautiful way.
You sparked some thoughts in my head to also speak on, because we collaborated on this together. I think that this poem is Shahrzad is such an amazing poet, and I really love Persian poetry ever since I was a kid. Ever since I was a child, I really grew up with poetry, and I think poetry has a very resolutely, I would say, political and activist role in the history of Iran. And I also want to say that as a curator of this show, I struggled with what it means to make art for a situation we have, such as what we are witnessing in Iran, that is a bloody, ongoing catastrophe that is killing, arresting, killing people, my friends, my fellow citizens. And we are watching this on the media, on our own media at least, and falling into nightmares in our sleep. And I wake up and I'm trying to figure out what it means to be an artist, and what it means to have a certain position here in the US and be slightly safer than my fellow citizens, and what can I do? And so it was, the entire show goes back to this point for me, and I don't know what this show does really. It's just something that I felt like we had to do. But also to this, going back also to this poem, I think I'm very much interested in transcending translations. I never loved, to be honest, translations of Persian poetry. I think, come on, it just does not work. And for me, it was.
But don't you dare to say that, because Dick Davis is sitting back here.
I'm sorry, Dick Davis. I apologize about that. Your translations are great. I don't know where. But there is this incredible, I think, power in the music and the musicology of poetry that is hard to translate. But ultimately, it is important. But for me here, it was really important to, I would say, manifest the concept of the limits of language, and make a poem that can affect you effectively, could be understood effectively as opposed to literally. Because you have the literal, you either learn Farsi and then hear it, or you have the translation. But then for me as an artist, it was really about how do I visualize the affect of it.
And let me just say that before moving on to the next question,
Yes.
that what you did here is actually an act of translation.
Yes.
This is another form of translation. I mean, translation from is not only language to language,
For
it
sure.
could be language to another form of, mode of art. And I think, and this is an excellent and
Thank you.
successful,
Thank you so much.
translation attempt. So.
Thank you. You're very kind to say that. I do have another question here. For the next question is for Barbad. Barbad, can you hear us?
Yes, I think you can.
Yes, I can.
Yes, Barbad, you introduce yourself as Gurnegar, and I actually do apologize for forgetting your own translation for this term. And this or the Sinatop. Could you speak about the aesthetics and politics of Senatopy and Gurnegari, or the process of creating memorials, or we could perhaps also call them monuments. And then also, what is a memorial for victims of violence, and how does it serve?
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having us. Thank you for this magnificent exhibition, and I congratulate everyone for the Nobel Peace Prize that Nargis just won. And I mean, amidst this, let's say, sorrowful days with the crestfallen on our shoulders, such news really helps. Really, it
Yes.
matters. And well, first of all, I never called myself a Gurnegar or a topographer. I was called as such by Mehran Mohajer in an essay that he wrote about my what I call curriculum mortis, because artists are supposed to have a curriculum vitae, and I come up with my curriculum mortis. And so a cenotaph is topography. I had to when I wanted to translate Mehran Mohajer's text, I had to invent and come up with neologism, of course. And so I came up with topography from taphos, which means tomb, and graphin, like photography and other things. So, but graphene has different kinds of meanings, like to write, to scrape, to scratch. And so I do also rubbings on epitaphs of those who were assassinated, not necessarily by the Islamic regime. I did it on those that were assassinated here in Paris, those of cartoonists of Charlie Hebdo, for instance. And I showed them in Iran, actually. And so what I do as a topographer is that first of all, I understand that history of art is nothing but an infant if you compare it with history of burials and obsequies and gravestones and burial rites and so forth. So it's a rich thing to begin with. Secondly, you cannot, I believe, to my knowledge, you cannot name another country that its leader of the revolution comes back victoriously to his so-called homeland and goes directly with a chopper to a cemetery. and delivers that famous talk. I mean, Ayatollah Khomeini, when it comes to Iran, he flies with a helicopter to Besht Zahra cemetery, and he attacks Bakhtiyar's administration and Shah and so forth. And then he goes to Jamaran and never leaves the home until his death, until he's hospitalized. So somehow our contemporary history, at least the last four decades, starts with cemeteries. If you read the memoirs of the infamous hanging judge Khalkhali, he speaks of those that they first executed after the revolution, and they wanted to, he says, that they wanted to bury those corpses in Besht Zahra, and he says that Muslims, he means good citizens, law-abiding citizens, did not agree with that. They didn't want the soil to be contaminated by those corpses. So we buried them in nearby hills, so he says. So it starts with this revolution. It doesn't mean that it did not exist before. If you see the marches of the Siyati uprising, Shah had literally restricted it, and people couldn't visit those graves, and let alone the fact that those gravestones are perishing right now. And so what I do is that I mind that part of history, and it's against oblivion, first of all. Then it helps mourning, and the right to mourn is something that is taken from people, and is taken from people rather systematically. For those who've been denied a proper tombstone, for instance, I make tombstones for those people. And that's where the politics of cenotaph comes in. A cenotaph, from Greek kenos, which means empty, so it's an empty grave, but with a grave marker. It's not a grave, but it has an object that materializes the absence of that person. I mean, for instance, here in Europe, cenotaphs were usually intended for soldiers who were lost during wars, and their corpses were never found. But in Iran recently, and not just recently, but I mean in contemporary Iran, visiting certain graves has become somehow illegal, or you have to risk something to visit them. If you go, if I don't know if any of you have been to Khavaran, for instance, in Khavaran cemetery, which is one of our largest mass graves of executed dissidents, you don't know whose bones are where. And so sometimes they mark them with a pen, with a pencil, with flower petals, and they are all these markers are ephemeral. So this making of a cenotaph gives a geographical yet another geographical aspect to one's corporeal memorial, and makes it possible for people to have something, to gather around something. That is very important, and it has a history. For instance, I mentioned the Siyati uprising, for instance. Dr. Mohammad Mosaddeq, whom you very wisely, Illya Jan, started your talk with, he wanted to be buried next to those martyrs of the Siyati uprising, right? The Shah didn't let that happen, neither did Khomeini, and then he still buried in his home, in his where he was exiled actually. So Parastou's father was one of those people who really cared about this, and they put I think from photos I can say that it was made of marble, very probably there, so that one day they can bring the corpse there and bury Dr. Mousavijad there next to the Theatre Uprising martyrs, and that never happened. So that was a cenotaph. Kamaluddin Behzad, for instance, he has a grave in Tabriz, he has a grave in Herat. So one of these two is, of course, a cenotaph. So cenotaph is culturally something that I think always mattered in Iran, but it was never a strategy. It was never used strategically to tackle censorship, to tackle tyranny.
This is fascinating. I absolutely love how this your work in a sense exactly going back to what you mentioned about how in Iran not only they kill us, but they don't let us even mourn for our victims. Your memorials transcend that geography. I mean, we have, by the way, our Barbad's work behind you as you're sitting, a wonderful installation piece, and another piece of Barbad in collaboration with Mariam Ashrafi is in that large area with the three black painted walls. That is called What Has Befallen Us, Barbad.
Which is, by the way, the title of his father's story.
Yes.
The late Hushangi Golshiri,
the late
one of the founding figures of modern Persian novel and story writing. Yeah, just wanted to mention.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for that, actually. My next question is for Omid. Thank you for being here in person also with us. Omid has driven all the way from upstate New York to be with us. You have developed various approaches in your art practice and artistic production. Can you speak on direct versus metaphoric artworks with specific reference to the case of protest art, art of post-revolutionary Iran? Right here, you have both. You have an incredibly direct piece of art in the installation that is behind you with the faces of the current and previous rulers of Iran, one monarch and one supreme leader in the silicon cast or mold. Cleric.
He's not supreme in any way. I think
that's
one of the. I apologize.
I have been indoctrinated.
It's just
throughout
a
school. I apologize.
It has to do with indoctrination inside Iran. Actually, it has to do with the mistranslations that happens outside Iran.
Yes.
So yeah,
yes,
no supreme leader. It's just a cleric.
The cleric
happens to be the leader.
The cleric ruler and the previous king or Shah, and all of the casting of their faces falling on the floor, the reproducibility of that. But again, you are so direct there, and then you approach your paintings that are, we have two of your paintings here, incredibly beautiful pieces, very metaphoric. So please.
First I want to thank you. That's good.
Yeah.
First, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to this show. I want to thank the gallery for housing this incredible exhibition, and I want to thank you all for coming here today. Also, I'm honored to be showing my work next to this fantastic artist and great poet here. I just want to, before answering this question, I want to build a foundation for it. I just want to say this movement showed the world and showed us that people in Iran, people of Iran or Iranians, however you want to identify yourself, we have been in the modern history before the constitutional revolution in 1906 up to now, we've been fighting for freedom. You know, we've been protesting, winning something, and then losing it, and winning and losing, or winning and losing. So we've been struggling, and throughout this struggle, we have been scarred. So it was interesting to me that Parastou started with pain, and then you spoke about you read your beautiful poem that I'm looking forward to read a full poem. Like this pain was like translating and like cutting, and then Barbad's work about memorializing eradication, like annihilation of bodies, which becomes evidence for basically memorializing those atrocities. I just wanted to mention that and get to your question is that artists, of course, use like metaphor. Metaphor is a very, very powerful approach, as you mentioned it in your question, for interacting with the audience, with the viewers, and that allows usually the viewers to bring their own interpretation in the work. So connect with the work in a way that they understand the work, and when they see the work, that communication happens actually. Sometimes the audience, they don't understand the intention of the artist, and sometimes they do. But the artist sometimes does not want, it depends on the context of the work. The artist does not sometimes want for the audience to think as they bring their own interpretation into it. They want it to be very direct, as you mentioned, or I would say explicit, like sarih. I think in this context, in this movement, that people in the streets loudly speak about death to dictator, death to Khamenei, women, life, freedom. They are very frank and very clear to what they want. I thought that I should just echo that. I wanted to create a piece that is explicit. I did not really think about that interpretation aspects of reading a piece of art. And in terms of the other work, the other two pieces that are over there, yes, I use the Persian language, but also like some of them, they have English words in it. Those are more they're global, like they're not just about Iran, but also about other parts of the world. Because in those other pieces, I have the bodies are contained in a structure between this kind of nation-state structure where we have banks, we have governments, and we have presence that kind of enveloping humans. So that can be, interpreted globally in other contexts as well.
And that one actually, that what you just said makes me think of Roya Amir's work, which is hung here very beautifully and elegantly, and how essentially she is sewing together the Iranian woman-led movements and connecting them to the other woman-led movements across the world, and including the US. And also just how, the symbolisms of the threads and the colors and the intricacy of the work.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I think what I can hear here, and also in my own work, and I'm just being inspired with what Omid said, and also Roya's work, and what Barbad said, and also looking at Parastou's work here, and the installation of poetry, I feel like there is something that defies the form in all of these works in its conventional sense of the word.
Yes.
And that's, you know, the work of trauma and the work of collective trauma in particular, which comes down to fragmentation.
Yes.
And the fragmentation can show itself, of course, you know, can manifest itself in visual, you know, forms, or also linguistic forms. And, you know, writing on a tradition which is heavily rhymed and heavily ornamented, speaking of Persian poetic tradition, it's always, you know, you always have to take a distance from the tradition in order to sort of define yourself or resituate yourself in that tradition. And I think it goes also about the artistic tradition as well, you know, this whole ornamental aspect of it that we don't see here in these works. I think this is so in a way, it's a taking a new position and redefining the tradition,
Yes.
and re-navigating the tradition as well, artistic and literary.
I wanted to add another thing, a very short. You talked about translation, about your work. I think another aspects of translation that I wanted to mention, for example, when I was reading the statements of everyone's work, is that the fact that this exhibition is happening outside of Iran and the United States, there is another level of translation need to happen through the statements. For example, I was reading Parastou's statement, and as like Parastou is explaining what is happening in the world, where like it has to happen here for the viewer to be able to enter to the context. Whereas if Parastou's work is in Tehran, for example, I don't think that statement is necessary anymore.
Sure.
Because the audience will immediately, or Iranian audience here, they don't need the statements. They can just jump in
Yes.
easily. And again, that barrier that you mentioned about the limit of language to express what is happening, I think it's like there's another barrier also being outside of Iran.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And being exiled also outside
Yeah.
of Iran.
I think that's a great way of moving on to Jinoos's work.
Yes,
Which is
yes,
heavily
and
translated.
The next question is actually for Jinoos. Thank you, Jinoos, for waiting kindly for us. Your written documentation of the revolution is a poignantly moving piece which taps into notions such as memory, trauma, and eyewitness account. Historiographically, sorry, my English is falling. Perhaps it could be classified as a form of affective documentation of trauma. Could you speak on the role of such notions as memory, body, trauma, and documentation in artistic production?
Thank you. Thank you for being a part of this exhibition. And about your question, I have to say, if I consider art and creating artwork as a form of storytelling, then I view it as an opportunity to document a human sub-narrative. This micro-narrative exists alongside the broad macro-narrative that history, philosophy, and social science often focus on. These visual notes try to be in this position. In today's world of social media, personal accountability has grown significantly. Everyone now can record and share their individual perspective in real time with a diverse audience. Even experiences as profound as trauma seem to be rapidly consumed. I don't know, perhaps this is a new humanity's way of healing trauma by proliferation and sharing experiences quickly, or maybe find trauma as an attractive product for consume. But social networks have also changed the way of witnessing and reposting it. When narrating a personal or social or political issue, one must consider how to present it effectively, how to make it liking by a wider audience. You have to think about all of these things when you want to publish your own experience. This often transforms the narrative into something consumable with a short shelf life, as it swiftly gives way to next topic and event. In this series of artwork, I have returned to approach narration with more deliberation and contemplation, a kind of testifying from personal observation, a micro-narrative which tied to macro-narrative of history. The event that when I am in and I know that this period will be important part of our history. I have chosen a combination of storytelling and historytelling, while visual and literary aspects are not of paramount importance. I do aim for a sense of permanence in the artwork, even though it doesn't strictly adhere to standards of literature or historiography.
Amazing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jinoos. Just to mention, Jinoos' work is here behind you as well, the Diaries of Revolution, and the translation is accessible through the QR code that is next to it. So if you scan the QR code, you can see the PDF, including that translation. And I also really just must say, love your sketches along with the handwriting, Jinoos. My next question is going back to Parastou. Parastou John, you can hear me, right? Yes. You go to Iran frequently, even in the recent years, merely to honor the memory of your beloved parents, Deciphering Forouhar and Parvaneh Eskandari, who were brutally killed at the hands of the current regime years ago, 1998, I believe. Every time you take the risk of return, you also risk your own safety and freedom. Could you talk to us about the emotional and perhaps also physical challenges of your annual return to Iran?
این سوال سختیه.
This is a difficult question for her.
My apologies.
It's okay. شاید برای شروع خوب باشه که با توجه به حرفایی که راجع به حفظ حافظه زده شد، در مورد گورنگاری زده شد، در مورد روایتگری در واقع برای حفظ حافظه بقیه گفتن، من اینجا از این نقطه شروع بکنم برای گفتن دلیل رفتنم اصلا.
Maybe it's best for me, since we've been hearing about the importance of narrating and narrative and also a narrative in its different forms, as a form of memorizing and remembering what has gone and what has happened. either in the form of making epitaphs or in minor historiography in the form of keeping memoirs, daily memoirs, and other forms of art. So it might be best if I start with what I'm going to share now. Sorry, Pastor, if my mind is a bit scattered. I've been and landing and all that. So go ahead.
فکر کنم یادت نبود میخوای بر من ترجمه کنی.
Nobody actually told me, but that's totally fine. Sorry. Go ahead. This is how revolutionary we are. I'm proud of it.
That's good.
Go ahead.
خب باز هر بار رفتن به ایران در واقع یک سنتی رو نگه داشتنه که در حفظ یک مکان یادآوریه. مکان Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Every time going back to Iran, every time for her is to honor a place and to remember a place and to preserve the memory of that place.
و این مکان یادآوری در واقع خانه پدر و مادر منه که در اون سالها نه فقط زندگی که فعالیت‌های سیاسیشون رو کردن و بعد در همون جا در همون خونه به قتل رسیدن.
And that place for her is not only the place where her parents used to live and also have their political activism, pursue their political activism, but it was also a place of their murder, the place that they were brutally murdered, their own house.
و این مکان در واقع برای شهر تهران، برای بسیاری از آدم‌ها در تهران که در واقع این خواست دادخواهی رو پیش میبرن، یک مکانیه که هر بار بهش برمیگردن، هر بار میان برای شرکت در اون مراسم که سالگرد قتل پدر و مادر منه، چه ممنوع باشه چه مجاز باشه. پس یه مکان جمع شدن برای اعتراض و برای یادآوریه.
So this place for her, which is her parents' house where they were murdered, is also a place where every year people in Tehran and some people also from across Iran, I assume, they come to Tehran in order to gather in this place. And this place over the years, over the past 2 decades, over actually 2 decades now at this point, has become a place of gathering and a place of remembering. Remembering the heinous crime that happened. Just for those of you who don't know Parastou Forouhar and her parents, I just want to say very briefly that Parastou's mother and father were 2 of the most prominent Iranian political activists in the pre-revolutionary Iran, pro-democracy, pro-Mohammad Mossadegh, members of the National Front party, and after the revolution they remained active, politically active, pursuing justice and democracy. And during the presidency of Mohammad Khatami in late 1990s, when the so-called chain murder of secular intellectuals happened in Iran, during which a number of Iranian political activists, but also translators, poets, writers, and thinkers, intellectuals and thinkers were mysteriously, but also sometimes clearly very brutally killed. During that process, her parents both were slaughtered in their house in Tehran. I just wanted to put that into context for those of you who probably don't know. Sorry, Parastou Jan. Go ahead.
و در واقع حفظ این سنت، حفظ این حفظ این سنت اعتراضی انگیزه اصلی من برای هر بار رفتن، برای که بسیاری از کسانی هم که این یک کار جمعیه، بسیاری آدم ها در طول سالها در حفظ این سنت بسیار تلاش کردن و به نظر من مهمه که این سنت حفظ بشه. به همین دلیل کاری که من میکنم صرفاً اینه که میرم اونجا و سهم خودم رو ادا میکنم در حفظ این سنت اعتراضی.
So Parastou believes that what she does, meaning going back to Iran and honoring the memory of her parents in that very place, she has also set this tradition. The word sunnat means the tradition of remembering, the tradition of gathering, and also gathering as an act of protest, as an act of pursuing justice. And that's really important to her. And she thinks that, you know, by going back and taking the risk of going back, she will continue that tradition, which is to gather in that very place where that heinous crime happened. If I may, and I know this is an intervention, Illya, and I think that's important, Parastou Jan, if you can connect perhaps this experience with the work that we see here in the background, and also the figures, the human figures that we have in the other room. If you can talk about the connection between this experience and also the work that is presented here, that would be wonderful.
تو خودت یک واژه‌ای به کار بردی که به نظرم در واقع یک واژه کلیدی برای فهمیدن کار من، اورنامنت، برای اینکه در واقع اون چیزی که پشت سر شما هست، این کاغذ دیواری، یک فضای پر نقش و نگاری، پر از چشم هایی که داره زل زده به در واقع مخاطب، داره نگاه میکنه، داره میپاد، داره چشم پوشی میکنه، نگاهشو یک نوع در واقع کار هنری معمولاً بهش نگاه میشه، این کار داره به تو نگاه میکنه و همینطور در این تکرار این چشمها، این فیگورهایی که داخلش هم گم شدند و هم در واقع اون ساختار رو دارن میشکنن، یه جوری مثل گیر افتادگی میمونه در یک فضایی که در عین حال در خودش پتانسیل شکستن اونو داره، ولی در یک برزخی گیر افتاده. این برزخ در واقع به یه شکلی شاید شرایطیه که استقامت درش معنای خاص داره، برای اینکه اون موقعیه که اگر پا عقب بکشی از استقامت، اون وقت همه چیز رو واگذار کردی و شاید این ربطش باشه به اون سفر در واقع.
Wow. Amazing. I try to be as eloquent as you are, Parastou. She refers to the word that I used previously in translations, which is the ornament. And she says, if you look at this work, which is a wallpaper, and it's supposed to be an ornamental piece, which you put on the wall in order to beautify a space. And when you look at this work, you see a handful of eyes staring at you, but you see that these eyes are staring at you in different forms. They look at you, they stare at you, they turn away from you, they're looking away from you. And by the way in which they look at you, they also create these figures which defy solidified figures at the same time. And for her, the concept of resistance under surveillance, concept of resistance under control and oppression, and the return to Iran, in order to honor the memory of her parents as an act of resistance, is in a way depicted in this work when you look at it by seeing that there are also figures that are cut up and strangled within within these different ways of
This liminal space.
the liminal space in which the figures defy the human figures, but at the same time they exist. And she says that, for me, the return to Iran is in a way an act of resistance under such circumstances, and she feels that if she steps back and if she gives up on the act of return, then there is nothing left for her to hold on to, I suppose,
yes.
right? To resist.
If I may, I also want to talk about a couple of thoughts that came to me around ornaments. And of course, I grew up in Esfahan, and I used to go to these incredibly beautiful, but also ornamentally sophisticated spaces of the mosques. And I think the word ornament also here is important to think about in that context, because ornament in Islamic art historically has been a way of getting away from imagery. And to perhaps this is not a fair generalization, but perhaps I could say that a lot of what ornament has tried to do in the history of the Islamic history of art was to make a somewhat passive ornamentation or decoration or abstraction. Here you're subverging that to a very, I would say, direct and potent ornament that is not sitting silently aside. It's not neutral. It's not indifferent.
یک در واقع یه روی کرده، این فقط یه اپروچ. اصلا نمیشه اورنامنت رو، نقش و نگار رو به این خلاصه کرد، ولی فکر کردن من در فضای، در واقع در ساختار اورنامنتیک یا روی کرده من اینه که این یک ساختاریه که بسیار قاعده‌منده و هر چیزی رو که قواعد اون رو بشکنه در واقع بهش به شکل اشتباه نگاه میکنه. اینطوری تفاوت‌ها رو در واقع خفه میکنه. یک فضایی میسازه از توازن و تقارن و همه اون چیزهایی که در واقع ایدئال‌های یک سیستم ایدئولوژیک هستن و هر چیزی رو که یک ایندیویدوالیته درش داشته باشه شبیه اشتباه میشه در چنین ساختاری. این ساختاره که در واقع توی چنین ساختاری اون وقت این فیگورها هم ساختار رو دارن میشکنن و همین که از دستش خلاص نمیتونن بشن. واسه همین میگم مثل یک برزخی میمونه. در واقع کلنجار ایندیویدوالیته است با اون ساختاری که برش غالب شده.
Yeah, and I forgot to, I'm sorry that I forgot to translate the very last part of your work, which I'm glad you brought it up again. So the ornamental structure of which we see in the Islamic art tradition is something that she's taking issue with here, in a sense that and she says that in this ornamental, heavily ornamental structure, what is regulated usually is everything is regulated, and through symmetrical aesthetics, what is lost is the individuality. And for her, this loss of individuality throughout that process is something that she has, very consciously taken into account in her work, which then for her is, to defy that symmetrical aesthetics and to bring in that individuality creates a sort of a conflict, right? A dilemma which she resembles to a purgatory state, a state of being on the one hand, she's breaking away from that oppressive symmetrical aesthetics of regulating everything, and she's also mentioning the ideology and political ideology, which very much does that as well. So to defy that, but at the same time to be stuck with it, to be trapped with it, entrapped with it, and this sense of entrapment, but at the same time defying it has created this purgatory sort of a state of being that you can see in this work. Wonderful
Beautiful
response. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, as a experience of an audience looking at your work, because these gazes are so powerful, Parastou. To me, it was so difficult for me as a viewer. I had to stand in front of your work and find out those figures. To be able to see them is a form of also a struggle for the viewers as well, because those eyes are so powerful looking at me. And that was quite powerful. Thank you.
خیلی ممنون. Thank you very much. دقیقاً به همین دلیل فکر میکنم من که کارهایی که سایت سپسیفیک هستن و در واقع مثل همین کاغذ دیواری که تمام فضا رو در اختیار خودش میگیره، دقیقاً اون درگیر کردن مخاطب با کار رو که در ابتدا ازش حرف زدیم، که در واقع هنر با درگیر کردن مخاطب با خودش میتونه فضایی برای ادراک و حس باز بکنه. به نظرم کارهای سایت سپسیفیک اینطوری یک مزیتی دارن به سر چنین اثری.
So Parastou says that her work and a lot of her works actually. I've also been to your writing room. So, yes,
yeah,
yes, actually, yeah, which I actually saw it. I witnessed it. I had the pleasure of seeing her actually creating that magnificent work also, which is based on the calligraphy and language, and it's really very brilliant. She says that, in works such as what you see here that are site specific, and that matters to her because she thinks that, site specific works such as this one that you see here, they have the ability to engage the viewer in a way that, you cannot engage the viewer with works that are not site specific. So for example, in this work, if you distance yourself from the work, or go to different directions, your sensory perception of the work changes, and it affects you, and the way that you communicate with the work and relate to it is different from perhaps other works that are not exactly site specific. For her, that perception, that engagement of the audience with the work is also part of the creative process that she has in mind.
Thank you so much, Parastou, and thank you so much, Shahrzad, for your incredible translation. I do realize that I don't even necessarily need to be a moderator here. You could just help with this incredible talent of immediate translation. Thank you. I want to go to Barbad, if possible, and if we still, yes, I don't know what is happening here. So Barbad John, a question I have here for you. Firstly, you used to produce art when you still resided in Iran. In the aftermath of the recent uprising, you have been one of the most vocal and influential artists who have particularly focused on grieving and mourning as a form of remembrance and resistance. How has your artwork changed over these years? Have you been affected by censorship?
Well, I think it is true to say that my art hasn't changed at all. I've been making gravestones, cenotaphs, memorials for many years. I think the first cenotaph that I made, I think I was 15 or 16.
Wow.
Yeah, it was for God, actually. On it, it was written in Persian, Khe Dal Alef Khuda. But the first, because you raised yes, yeah. Since I've been threatened and I cannot go back, I can say that I'm an atheist. Okay. So so anyhow, but the first gravestone that I engraved with my own hands on stone, since you brought up the serial killings of Iranian intellectual and opposition figures, it was for Ahmad Miralai, who was a great translator of mostly known by his translations of Jorge Luis Borges into Persian, and Octavio Paz and Edgar Allan Poe and many. So I was 12 when they killed him, and he was a very close friend of my father's. So I drew a caricature of him being killed at that time. So no, it hasn't changed so much. It hasn't, but it has changed in this sense that it has became more complicated. For instance, this vertical video that you see in this exhibition of Ali Ruzbahani's grave marker. So and since you asked about censorship and all that, so I know for sure that if I make anything permanent, first of all, it cannot be permanent. The regime would destroy or at least vandalize these gravestones, grave markers, headstones, whatsoever, in less than an hour. So what you see in that video is that during the past year with the progressive movement, Woman, Life, Freedom. So I've been making these sculptures which resemble fire and cypress at the same time, and it's composed of the slogan "Woman, Life, Freedom" in 5 different languages spoken in Iran, in Persian, in Kurdish, in Baluchi, in Arabic, and in what else? Turkic, Azeri Turkic, yes. And so with the name of the deceased of those who've been killed. So they take it to the cemetery, mourn. Sometimes they cut their hair and hang it from it, and then they bring it back. And they bring it back home, because if they leave it there, they would definitely destroy it. For instance, just recently I made a cenotaph for Nikah Shakarami in her aunt's house, in her studio. She's a painter, she's a colleague of us. So it has changed, yes. I always contended with censorship, with systematic systematic destruction and vandalism of the regime. For instance, I made a gravestone. You cannot call it a gravestone because it's not made of stone. It's made of asphalt concrete for Muhammad Ali Sepanlu, a very famous poet, known to people as the poet of Tehran. And so they destroyed it. They covered it in concrete in less than a week, and I had worked on it for 9 months or so. So as I've said about censorship in Iran is not something that occurs. It's not something that happens. It's one of the molecules in the air. It's something that you breathe all the time. When talking about air pollution becomes political, when talking about water is political, everything is. So then censorship is omnipresent. And every act of each activist is and should be, perhaps, to tackle that. And yeah, and I think being with the families of these victims, these courageous people is the least that one can do, of course. And to go back to Parastou, what she was saying about her parents' house, I missed two things: our own house and Parastou's house. I was there for like 2 decades in each anniversary, and I miss it. I miss it so much. It's the in a possible world, that house should have been a museum by now. And she didn't say it, but it's been raided several times. They've taken hundreds and hundreds of objects from that house. The cane that Deciphering Forouhar had in his hand when they slaughtered him. Many things, and it's heartbreaking. In a possible world, that should have been a museum.
It is absolutely moving, Barbad, your courageous work, and both you and Parastou defying actively the tremendous effort the regime has put on us to forcefully forget, and we do not, and you do not, and you help really memorialize these beyond geography and time through your work. If I may, I have my last question for Jinoos, and then we will go to Q&A, and I also want to thank everyone here for your patience. We had a little bit of technical difficulty in the beginning. Jinoos, exile and immigration takes an emotional and physical toll on everyone, especially artists. How do you navigate your artistic profession away from home? What's your relationship with exile? And how do you think it may change or transform one's artistic vision and work?
I often avoid of these two words a lot, and it's usually others who bring up this situation. As someone who never desired to immigrate and strongly believed in staying in Iran to be a first-hand witness to the unfolding events in my homeland, coming to this term with and accepting this reality has not been easy for me. The first time I had to confront this was about 4 months after leaving Iran, when I had a conversation with Barbad about our joint exhibition. Out of the blue, he asked, "Do you want to show any artwork created after your exile?" At first, I didn't fully grasp what he meant, so asked him to repeat. He casually replied, "After exile." It felt like an electric shock coursed through my body. I had never even thought about that word before. it was a jolt, a pause, and told him I'd call back a few minutes. After hanging up the phone, I felt a hole within me open up, a hole that had taken care of that for months, reminded just the spot suddenly show up. Like the moment when someone gets shot and doesn't immediately compare what happened. They touch the bullet wound and watch in disbelief as the blood stains their shirt. Over time, I tried to digest these two words, and I still haven't been able to. So I'm afraid I don't have the right answer for you. However, it feels like an amputation, a kind of disability. When you lose a limb, it takes time to adjust. There's this syndrome where people who have had their legs amputated experience pain in part of the leg that's no longer there. If I myself, actually I find myself in similar situation now between awake and asleep. Over time, a person can adapt this disability, and by losing one sense, maybe their other senses can become more acute, but I haven't reached that stage yet. For example, words have always been an obedient tool for me. I've missed that. Now, I'm talking to you in English. I have had to spend time to find right words if I could. In my artistic practice, words and images have always interwoven, and I've brought the collective memory associated with words into my visual experiences. But now it's complicated. It's too complicated, very, very, very complicated for me. And I hope that with time I can overcome this and explore other power of my senses, or perhaps even discover a new way of observing. Currently, I'm still too maybe confused to provide a precise response to offer a definitive insight.
Thank you so much, Jinoos. So much of what you've said resonates with me personally as well. I would, for the sake of time, just want to open up the floor to Q&A. Maybe we can take a very few, and then we can have a little bit of reception as well.
Just a quick note,
Yes.
Jinoos John, that was one of the most poignant and most powerful and moving descriptions of exile. And I've been reading on that for quite some time now, working on a project that has to do with literature of exile. So I really appreciate that you shared that with us. I know it's not easy to put those into words, especially if you are putting them into in words of another language. It almost doubles, multiplies the pain. So thank you for giving us that really powerful answer. I just wanted to say
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
And as I think all artists on this panel are actually exiled artists. So, and you just beautifully phrased that for all of us and described it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All of you.
Yes, unfortunately, we have a very
Oh, for them?
limited.
Yeah,
yes.
for them, yeah.
If you would like.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much for being with us, for talking to us. I want just to I was thinking about one thing, but mostly Barbad talks about his works, and I remember that maybe one of the so-called fathers of remembrance literature is his father, Hushain Golshiri. And Golshiri has a masterpiece, a very short story that the name of that is What Has Happened to Us, Barbad. And that one is maybe, it was from 1980, yes, Barbad? They're written in 1980, I think so. At one of the first literature about
1982.
82, yeah, 82, yeah. And at that short story, Barbad was a very little boy that his father is arrested and in the prison, and he went to the prison for visiting his father. And I don't know what's that, that the mother cannot be with him. And the pastor, the agent of the prison, brought him to see his father. When Barbad comes back to his mother, he can't speak anymore. And he can't talk about what happened to him. And when I saw your works, all of you, I can see that you can talk about yourself, and your mouth is open. You can express everything, and that one, and that in the short story, our generation was muted. We couldn't talk, but you can. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I comment on that? Yes.
Yes.
Babajan, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I wanted to say that fortunately or unfortunately, I was named after that story. So my mom was pregnant with me when my father named me Barbad when he was writing that story. And in an interview with Kaveh Golestan, he names this a miracle that his son turned out to be a painter. I was a painter back in those days. I still paint, actually. So when Barbad stops talking, Barbad of that story stops talking, and he draws somewhat abstract drawings, but a psychoanalyst finds dragons and monsters in it. And so it's an echo of a beautiful story by Nizami that Khosrow Parviz, the Sassanid king, loved his horse Shabdiz very much, and he said that I would kill anyone who brings the news of death of Shabdiz. And Shabdiz dies, and Barbad starts playing his music so sadly. So and the music embitters Khosrow Parviz so much that he says, "Is Shabdiz dead?" So saying what cannot be said is the core of this story. And you brought up the question of pain, and you asked Parastou. I was thinking that many of us are like doubting Thomas without having our own doubts. I don't mean that we have that much of incredulity in us, but you know that in that famous painting by Caravaggio and many others, that St. Thomas has to touch the wound. So when you get close to that pain, then you can come up with something that does justice to that mournful history of each of these people who lost their lives. And context would definitely it sometimes deforms it. And talking of exile, I would say a good exhibition is something that puts the viewer in exile. And C.R. Majani quoted this of Adorno, and it says it is part of morality not to be home in one's home. So I believe even in Iran, I was an exile. I always was. And so.
Extremely profound. Thank you so much, Barbad. It seems like if there are any questions.
Any comments? Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to say hi to everyone from Columbus. We are lucky to have you. This is Parvaneh Hosseini. Parastou Jan, much of love and hugs to you. And the previous speaker was Mehra Kamali. And on behalf of my friends here in Columbus, we want to appreciate your being here, especially on this day, very special day. It makes it more meaningful and memorable. Thank you, Illya, for making it possible. Thank you, guys. Thank you. It was our to connect to Narges Mohammadi again, and to what Barbad does, and the very act of breaking, challenging exile with what Parastou does almost every year. What I remembered this morning, as soon as I heard about the news of winning of Nobel Prize of Narges Mohammadi, I just remembered her image in a way that later I noticed that many other Iranians remembered her. I mean, it is a part of our collective memory. I remember her with in a cemetery, when she is standing next to Gohar Eshqi, right? Yeah, no, Gohar Eshqi, the mother of Fatemeh Beheshti, who was murdered by Iranian agents again. And that image of Gohar Eshqi, which by itself is a masterpiece of art, right? In that black chador, she doesn't speak, but she has the loudest voice in her eyes, those fierce eyes. And Narges is standing next to her in the cemetery, next to the tomb of the children, our children, who are murdered there. And she's loudly speaking, brave, loud, very clear. And as soon as Barbad started speaking about how, this cemetery has so much meaning, the tomb has so much meaning for us, we have a lot of points of remembrance with that. And today many Iranians remembered again how this brave woman, Narges, her image in our collective memory is in the cemetery speaking, asking for justice and not letting the voices to be, suppressed. And Parastou Jan, جای شما خیلی خالی اینجا especially everybody, but my heart is so much with you. And I hope we have all of you here in Columbus someday. And again, on that day, maybe we can celebrate another victory of Iranian. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Merci.
I also echo you. I think this is such a fantastic opportunity we've had to have you here with us, although from afar. I really do want to thank you as a curator for trusting us for giving us your most valuable time, attention, and incredible artworks, and for tonight being with us at such late hours in Germany and in Paris, or in, I don't know, maybe you're in Paris, Barbad in France, and you as well, Jinoos, in Canada. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For everything.
Jinoos Taghizadeh.
Yeah.
Zan zendegi
Azadi.
Zan zendegi azadi.
خسته نباشید عزیزان. خیلی
شما
خیلی
هم همینطور.
ممنونم
مرسی.
واقعا.
شما هم
ممنونم از
همینطور. خیلی ممنون.
خسته نباشین.
خیلی.
مرسی از
دوستم
همه.
همتون رو.
خسته نباشید. میبوسمتون. خداحافظ. به امید
خیلی.
دیدار.
مرسی. خدا.
Bye, bye.
Bye-bye.
Just a few announcements. There is still a reception if you would like.